afternoon. I'd like to call the Lee County Board of Commissioners back into session from our recessed meeting on March the 16th. And I'd like to welcome everybody here. At this time, if you would choose to stand, Dr. Frazier's going to lead in an invocation, then we'll have the pledge and go into old business.
Let us bow our heads. Precious God, again, we thank you for this privilege and opportunity for us to come to this meeting tonight. We thank you, God, for how you blessed us all day long and all year long, for that matter. But God, we're asking now that you guide the minds and the decisions and everything that the commissioners and make tonight. And also we pray for our citizens who we so often and so kindly love and dearly and want to do the best that we can for our citizens. So God, we thank you for what will take place tonight in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is a little bit of a different order than our usual meetings because it is a recess from the meeting last week. And the business that we're going to talk about tonight is to review and discuss a proposed agreement with Duke Energy on the coal ash storage on Colon Road. As you may know, at our last meeting last week, we simply took a vote to consider an agreement proposed by Duke. We received that Friday afternoon, and our council was out of town, so we really have not had a whole lot of time. This is the first chance we have gotten as a board to look over the agreement, and I understand council's been on the phone some this afternoon. So with that having been said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Schmidt, and she is going to present it and kind of walk us through it. Again, this is more of, I guess, an educational session, for lack of a better term. And I guess as we go from section to section, if there's questions or comments, if you'll just bring them up, you know, that might be the best way rather than us trying to remember and walk all the way back to the beginning, if that's okay with you, Ms. Smith.
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
There are certain provisions we can actually somewhat skip because they're standard contract provisions. We can actually start with section 2, which is the definitions. And the important part of that is that it defines environmental laws to include all federal, state, local statutes, regulations, any judicial order, pretty much anything that can be handed down by a judge, an agency. Those are all encompassed in the environmental laws as it's presented throughout the agreement.
And, but, hold on, just slow down just a little bit, just for my benefit. It's on we're on page 2.
Page 2?
Under item 2, definitions.
Correct.
Just so everybody's on the same page. Okay.
So, are we gonna have to turn this back in?
No.
So I can write it?
Okay.
Okay, in paragraph 3 for the settlement payment terms. This is where they set out that they will pay the county $1.50 per ton up to 8 million tons, and after 8 million tons, it will be $3.50 per ton. In paragraph 3A, the initial advance is $4 million, and that will be paid 10 days after all the permits have been issued and the site has been determined to be fully constructed and tested and ready to accept the coal ash. Paragraph B gets a little bit confusing, but essentially the county will receive the $4 million upfront payment. And then after 2,666,666 tons have been placed in the mine, 12 months after that date is when Duke will start making an annual payment to Lee County of $1.50 per ton. And that will be made on an annual basis starting 12 months after 2,666,666 tons are at the mine. turning to page 3, paragraph 3C at the very top. This is one item that the Duke attorneys and I have not agreed on yet, and
Okay.
I would need advice from the board on how to proceed. This paragraph states that to the extent that Chatham County receives a more favorable offer or agreement, then Duke would be required to come back to the board and negotiate terms. And if we cannot come to an agreement, then we would go into a mediated settlement conference. We would go to mediation. I propose to Duke that it should not be just restricted to Chatham County. It should be any county that has the same sort of setup that we have here, where it's a structural fill or mine reclamation under the Coal Ash Management Act. The attorney I spoke with was going to take that back to his people, and I would request the board to give me direction on how they would like to proceed with that. Paragraph 4 talks about records, that Duke must maintain records related to the coal ash site. Lee County is allowed to review those records. Paragraph 5 states that the coal ash to be placed in the mine will only be from North Carolina and cannot come from any other state. Paragraph 6, if there are any permit violations, Duke must give us written notification within 10 days after they receive the permit violation notice. Paragraph 7 talks about sampling, and Duke or Chara must provide the county semi-annual or greater periodic reports regarding their sampling methodology and protocols. We also added to that Lee County is allowed to go and actually do their own sampling at its own cost. That will be a split sample, so in other words, when Lee County asks to do a sample, the Duke representative will be doing a sample alongside the Lee County representative.
So when we talk about sampling, are we talking about sampling the test wells around it?
No, it would be sampling the actual coal ash.
This is during the placement.
This is
Sampling.
once it's here, correct?
What about inspection as it's being placed?
That is not provided for in this paragraph or in the agreement. We can add it.
You might want to explain what you mean by inspection.
As it's being placed, just open eye inspection, someone to see that it's being put in there like it's supposed to be put in there.
Do you have an idea how we do that?
Well, they could hire an inspector from an independent laboratory and let them handle it.
Sort of like clerk of works? Do you know?
Paragraph 8 talks about economic development. Duke will make their site readiness program available to Lee County. There are no timelines set on this. It's fairly open-ended. When I spoke with the attorney, he indicated a willingness to work with Lee County on economic development. Paragraph 9 is another paragraph that the attorney and I were not in agreement on. The release of all claims as to Duke. This is where the county says we won't bring any claims against Duke for the coal ash.
No deal.
Duke would also like Chara to be added to this provision. My opinion is that Chara is not a party to this agreement. This agreement is between Duke and Lee County, and it should remain without Chara added to this provision.
No deal.
With that being said, for the release, there are 2 exceptions. The county would not release any claims as it relates to the violation of any environmental law, and that at the beginning of the agreement was quite extensive how many laws there are out there. It's pretty much any law that would be related to the environment. It could be Clean Water Act, it could be Clean Air Act, it could be a local law. There's a violation of a regulatory law, anything, we would not release any claim against Duke for that. It would also not release any claim against Duke for enforcement of this contract. Number 10, paragraph 10 is a reciprocal release. So Duke would be releasing any claims they would have against Lee County.
No deal.
Paragraph 11 is a covenant not to sue. That states that Lee County will not sue Duke for this coal ash site. It also says that Lee County will not encourage or assist anyone else in a lawsuit. It, however, does have an exception as well. And if there's what's called a material non-compliance with the environmental laws, then we would still be able to sue. So a material non-compliance would be something very substantive, very important. It wouldn't be a minor provision. It would be a violation of the Clean Water Act, for instance, would be a material non-compliance. Lee County would preserve its right to sue under those terms.
So I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, if you don't mind. Go in reverse for a second, and between the release of all claims in paragraph 9, and then the, what you just said with the material compliance. How do they mesh?
Well, it's the county releasing all claims against Duke. So in other words, they're related. It all deals with bringing action against Duke.
So, but I mean, in my mind, I'm not an attorney, but in my mind, if we release them in paragraph 9, but then in paragraph 11, it says that we do have some reason that we can sue.
Correct.
Do
And
they cancel each other? I
No,
mean,
no, they're
okay, that's what I need
They're
some.
complementary.
Okay.
So we would release all claims against Duke except for violations of
Of
environmental
all
laws.
the environmental laws that they
Correct.
listed at the beginning.
And we
Okay.
promise not to sue. Yes.
Right, but I just wanted clarification. 'Cause
And the county would also promise not to sue unless there was an environmental violation, environmental law violation.
But other things that, I mean, I don't know what that would be, but something else that would happen on the site that
If
would.
it's a violation of an environmental law, if it's a violation
We
of
can sue, but if
state,
it's.
federal, regulatory law, judicial action, legislative action, anything, we still have the right to bring action on those terms.
Okay.
Paragraph 12 states that neither party or Duke is not admitting to anything. This is simply an agreement, there's no admission of fault, liability, etc. Paragraph 13 states that each party will bear its own costs. Paragraph 14 states that if there is an action brought under this contract, it would be brought in Wake County, North Carolina. I proposed Lee County, the attorney proposed Mecklenburg County. I would say for
No deal.
So. Paragraph 15, actually paragraphs 15 through 24 are all standard contract provisions. They're in every single contract. Essentially it's that the county can enter into such an agreement, there's authority for it. It's a notice provision, who notices from under the agreement will be sent to. When the agreement becomes effective. Standard contract provisions. So, are there any questions from the board?
I guess going back, we need to look at it, we started off with the definitions, which seem fairly clear cut. Your first thing that you needed guidance on was 3C
Paragraph 3C,
on the rate adjustment,
correct. And whether you want to leave it as only Chatham County,
or any other county in the, any other county in the state. Okay, does
or any
any,
county that has a similar, you know, mine reclamation, structural fill type, so.
I guess, you know, if somebody has a better idea, speak up, but, you know, we'll kinda go through the agreement, and then if you have anything you want to add, we'll talk about that at the end, unless you feel like it would fit into one of these, clauses. Does anybody have anything though prior to 3C that they wanna talk about, that they have issues with, or things need to be, and take your time, I mean, I know it's, we're all just seeing this for the first time with the changes. I apologize to the audience.
I think the council have picked up on the rate adjustment, and I think that we ought to allow her to at least put that part in this agreement as we speak, to make sure that we get the same thing if Chatham County or any other county receives in this agreement. I don't want us to, as bad as we don't want to see these things happen, but if there's funding is gonna be related to the coal ash, then we need to get as much as we possibly can. So I would agree with the council that we put that in.
Anybody have any discussion on that one? Okay,
Madam Chair, I want to point out that, you know, we would not receive a second payment according to Chara's schedule, probably until, I'd say November 2019, thereabouts, based on the timeline that they have for bringing the volume to us. I think also, we need to caution that they have made changes in their permit. They've raised the bottom level of the fill from 4 feet to 5.5 feet, which is gonna limit the amount of coal ash they can get on the site. So they may not make 8 million tons. I think the fact that they were willing to go with the $3.50 a ton over the 8 million tons shows that they're probably pretty confident at this point that 8 million tons will not come to the site. So before we start spending $12 million, I want to caution everybody that it's a time payment. We have a lot of time before we'll even get the first payment. So I just want to caution that, and before there's a mad dash to the Summit Building for requests. Yes, sir.
I'm just looking at timeline as far as completion date. What kind of time?
According to their timeline, completion in its entirety is November 2022. So that's about the time frame we would get our last payment on the site, the way this is structured. So, you know, I just want to go ahead and bring that up at this point so that you have in your mind a timeline. If they don't get all their permits and are ready to construct, as you know, they're hoping in the middle or late summer, you know, we don't get that first payment for a while. So I don't plan on using any of that money in next year's budget. So you know, it's not going to burn a hole in the pocket over here.
understood. Any other discussion on the rate adjustment? Adding, I guess basically we call it sort of an equivalent phrase to that.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Is that nodding of heads or? Okay. The next, Okay, anything on section 4? Access to coal ash delivery records. 5, site restrictions. For the public, that just simply says that, Duke would agree that it will not place coal ash at the site that was the product of generating electricity at the facility outside of North Carolina, as council said. And the coal ash placed at the site, will be types consistent with coal combustion products, such as such term is defined under the Coal Ash Management Act. Let's see. 6, talking about the notice of, go ahead.
I think we also need to highlight that there was some concerns about the Hartsville, South Carolina, and just to bring calm, that coal ash will not come to the site here in the county.
With an agreement.
With an agreement, yes.
Okay,
So you're saying that in site restrictions, it's not, they're agreeing not to put coal anywhere else? Is that what you're saying?
well, the site, and under that, section 5, you know, the original permit by Chara states that they would be bringing coal ash from North Carolina and South Carolina to the Lee County site. And then, there was some serious concern in particular about the Hartsville site, and the type of coal ash that was there, Andre. So, you know, that was one of the things in talking to them that, you know, we wouldn't consider an agreement at all if it was coal ash from outside of the state.
Was there discussion about having them also agree that not to put it anywhere else?
We had discussions with them
Right.
about, you know, other sites in Lee County. I don't, based on review of the sites and their discussion, this will be the only site here. Now it's not in the agreement, so I have to point that out.
And that's something that, I mean, that's a great point, that maybe in number 5, we need to add, you know, only at that site. I mean, what are your what's the board's feelings on that?
We do have a memorandum or email from a Duke representative saying that they had agreed to that point. So we can go, you know, I don't see a problem with putting it back in the agreement under section 5.
Because it's things like that that worry me about the number 9 versus number 11 as far as the lawsuit. You know, if we don't catch that now, would that be something that we just would relinquish our right to sue them over later?
This agreement is specific to the Colon Road site.
Right.
If they were to try to establish a second site,
Then it'd be back to square one again.
unless
Okay.
they voluntarily go ahead and do it. I want to go ahead and say that under number 5, there was no way for the legislature to legislate number 5.
Right.
That would be a violation of antitrust, or, pardon?
Interstate commerce.
Yes, interstate commerce, thank you. And so, you know, it was important for us to get that in this agreement where they voluntarily agreed to that.
Okay. Is everybody okay with adding just, you know, specifying that just the one site in the county, like Andre suggested?
Well, I'd like to see him just add the lawyer's, response in the contract.
We have
Okay,
we'll just go ahead and put that in there,
okay.
that this will be the only site in Lee County.
Just out of curiosity, are we gonna get a copy of the DOT scale reports?
We can put that in here as well.
Okay, number 6. Okay, is everybody okay on number 5? Okay, number 6, the notice of permit violations. If, you know, if there would be any, that we would receive written notice within 10 days. Does anybody wanna change anything in that provision? Okay. Number 7, and that's, I think, where Ms. Schmidt also had some issues with the sampling. To allow us to go onto the site and do the split samples. You know, Tim, you brought up, you know, was that the test wells? My question on that was, does that include air quality issues? And then Doc, I think you brought up, you know, some type of independent inspector. What are the feelings on that?
I'll just go ahead and, on the well testing, the well testing is done by a third party, and those are, you know, furnished to Diener, so we can get those reports from Diener as they're filed. As for our sampling, you know, that we placed in here, this was not really something that was discussed, you know, in any meetings. This was brought up later, after we were trying to come up with somehow to check the protocol of what they were doing. And this is how that came up with the lawyers. So I don't think they have a problem with us coming on the site. I don't, you know, when I visited the site in Asheville, I picked the stuff up, I stood on it, I played with it, and did all that fun stuff. So I don't think they have a problem with it. So I think they would allow us to do that. And we don't have the expertise in-house. We would have to hire a third party anyway.
But we could do that if we saw a problem.
Yes.
I would like to amend that verbiage. It says of the sampling protocol, but I would also like to see it say, testing protocol as well. 'Cause how they actually test the materials versus just sampling, 'cause you can sample anything, but unless you explain how you test it, you're not gonna know.
Are we going to have a baseline test of water wells surrounding that area?
I think we should.
I mean, we brought that up back in November 15th when we had that meeting.
And they said they would do that. But
And then when we
then,
came in
but
the
it's
following-
not.
No, they were in
the following week.
Yeah.
I thought that we had been told that they had offered that to anyone who was interested.
I'd like to see that site.
I would suggest that we consider setting environmental health out and meeting with the property owners who are on wells. We have data on who does have wells, and offer to test the wells for them. We can, you know, we have well kits, you know, testing kits. We have a third-party administrator that tests the water for us. And I think we should, you know, if that's acceptable to the board, I think that would be a good thing to do on our own to get that baseline testing. We've done similar things in the fracking zone, you know, by going out and getting the samples that way with environmental health. So I think this would be a good thing.
I'd like to first have Chara confirm or deny that they didn't offer that, so that we don't wind up paying for it.
'Cause
I remember that
when Scott
discussion.
Sewell stood up in front of us,
I know
that
what he said.
November, whatever it was, that last meeting in November, that he did offer to do that. Yeah.
Agreed. So why do we wanna pay? Let
Was
them pay.
Scott's charge.
I understand. I understand.
We might want to random sample to come in behind them.
Yes.
That's fine.
I mean, I think if they would be willing to pay to do initial sampling, but then us, I mean, I know it's,
Well, they can pay us to do the random thing.
I think it's $65 a kit.
That's what I'm talking about.
okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I recall having a conversation that when you're dealing with heavy metals and such, the cost is much higher.
Yeah.
it's what we pay through the health department. So, you know, and those were and that's what, you know, it's what we did in those other areas. So I'll be happy to look into it further and be happy to contact Chara.
If you test specifically for heavy metals, it's gonna be a lot higher, which I think is foolish to do a baseline if you're not gonna test for what could potentially be there and what they run at.
Is there a way to incorporate that, Carrie? Okay. We'll give you some time to, you got it? You need some more time to write it down?
Baseline testing of wells.
That's one thing, we have to be under contract with our legal range.
Okay, any other, I mean, that's good discussion, guys. I mean, you know, just talking it through. Again, I apologize to the audience, but it's sort of a work session. Anything else on sampling? Okay, number 8, the economic development, and the way it reads, is again that Duke would make its site readiness program available to Lee County, and work with,
What that is, you know, say what this program is?
that it's a team with their economic development division that would work with the partnership to kind of assess certified sites for development in the county. And it for the benefit of the audience, that Duke would consider in good faith applications by Lee County for additional or increased assistance from funds and programs available through or supported by Duke, including without limitation the Carolinas Investment Fund, Lee County's Economic Development 501c3, and community college grants for Central Carolina Community College. One of the things when I saw this, again, my personal opinion, I just thought it was too open-ended.
That's the good faith part.
No, it's not very specific. And just to start off the discussion, I feel like, yes, it needs to be more specific, and if they're serious about being partners and doing things to offset, you know, negative impact, especially in that area, of our county, as long as coal ash is coming in, I think economic development partnership with Duke needs to be here as well. You know, right in number 8, to me, it just says they'll do a site plan partnership and then, you know, in good faith, look at other opportunities. It does say without limitation, but I mean, that can be a small limit or a large limit, you
Well,
know.
originally they did have a limit for the
Correct.
site readiness,
Correct, was $35,000.
$35,000, and I removed that. I don't think there should be a limit. I think
Right.
the sky's the limit.
But I need some feedback from y'all on that, because I mean, I thought it was too vague. And my thing is, as long as, I mean, if they're truly serious about being good partners, you know.
Rogers Hall, input on it?
No, we have not talked to Roger. I mean, again, it's kind of a,
Yeah, but
It was discussed at the last partnership meeting that they were entering into this agreement with Duke, and that they were gonna be part of the site readiness program, and they had already received funds from Duke for the first phase. So that was discussed last Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't
I
have
see a
any-
whole lot wrong with that, because it says, you know, including without limitation. I don't know how you would word it differently.
Well, I'll just simply tell you, in their defense, I do agree, they've done a lot for community college.
oh,
And, well, then I don't know what else we're looking for in this paragraph, but maybe we have a call another county if you think that, I think Chatham is involved, and they're having the same thing.
Well, I still think, you know, even if we could put, and even if we could put a phrase in there that says, you know, at the minimum for the duration of the coal ash storage project, so that we know that, you know, they're gonna partner with us, you know, at least through 2022, if that's as long as, you know. I know,
I thought they had, yeah, okay.
Carton, Andre, or Rick, you have anything? Okay.
I mean, you can get as specific as you like, I mean, that's fine.
Well, I mean, I, again, you know, being a,
Don't box us in.
right, I know, and trying to be a person trying to be a person glass half full. I like the term without limitations, but I'm getting a little bit jaded with all of this, so without limitation, it can go up or down.
Yes.
But I would at least like something in an agreement for us to consider that would marry us to each other through the project, you know. I know, I mean, I really wouldn't wanna put a dollar amount on it either, because like Carrie said, you know, the sky's the limit, really. We'd like to do a lot, especially in that area of the county. And I think some ideas are out there that could be really good, but,
If you wanna have one specific, I would certainly say this ought to be aimed at that particular area.
yes, with priority given to the Cole and Osgood community.
Yes.
Definitely.
Cause it makes no sense to me to do something clear across the county if we could do it there. Okay. Okay, number 9, okay, open up for discussion on that. I have a lot of problems with this paragraph. This is the release of all claims to Duke.
Well, Madam Chair, that's why we have, counselor here. If you can think of any other way to explain it to her, please do.
The way I look at it, we would be releasing all claims, but the claims that the county is very interested in would be the claims relating to safety. And those are the claims we're not releasing. Those are the claims that will arise because there's a Clean Water Act violation, there's a Clean Air Act violation. Those are the claims that we want to be able to assert a claim against Duke for, and those claims are not released.
We don't wanna engage in any frivolous claims. If
Correct.
someone comes up on a whim.
And did I understand you to say there was some dispute this afternoon when you were talking to them? They
Yes.
wanted to include Chara.
Correct,
We
they,
do not want to include Chara,
no, we do not want to include Chara.
okay?
This agreement is between Duke and the county.
Yes.
Chara is in charge of the operations of this site, they're in charge of transportation. They are in charge of transportation from across the state to Lee County. That includes being outside of the mine area.
Mhm.
We don't wanna release claims against Chara.
Yes. Is everybody in agreement on that? That that's definitely, okay. Is that okay? Ricky?
No, I'm just saying that I think that the council should take that and put it in the wording that will specify the county.
Well, do we need to put, I mean, not Chara or Green Meadow LLC?
Yes.
Okay. well, number 10, release all claims as to Lee County. Any comments on that? Okay. 11. It's a covenant not to sue. Again, as you said, that's, does not absolve them if there's any environmental, health or safety laws breached, correct?
Correct. If you look at the second full sentence, starts on the
With
fifth line.
further.
The fifth line down further, so long as Duke is in material compliance with all environmental laws, or has tried to cure those, Lee County will not provide comment or opposition to the requested permits and will not seek to pass any laws or do anything to hinder the permits.
But if that's not the case, then it reverts back to our ability to sue.
Correct.
Okay. Any
If
questions?
they are not in compliance, material compliance with environmental laws,
That's a federal
That-
lawsuit, though.
It could be stayed.
or should we say,
This agreement allows us to sue in state, not in federal court.
But it could be,
Pretty much.
but it, like you said, it could be a breach of a federal law instead of a state law.
Yeah, but we're gonna sue for breach of contract when we're not gonna sue under those laws, which was more difficult for us to
Okay.
stand
have
up.
some
So that would just
issues
be-
that
would
could
just be a
resolve.
simple breach in Wake County. Okay. Okay. Any questions or additions or comments on that one?
I do like that.
Okay. Number 12. Basically, we're dealing with the costs. And then as Carrie said, the rest of them are just essential legalese. Governing law, form selection, venue, entire agreement and successors and interest, interpretation, authority, counterparts, severability, notices, amendments, integration, effectiveness, and captions. Which I think most of us, if we've seen a contract, have seen those before. All right. What else do you wanna put in here?
That's one thing I think that we ought to consider putting in there is that I think that at the meeting that we had with Duke, they mentioned about the 30-year, that Chara would ensure the safety of, and guarantee the safety of the landfill. And I think Duke mentioned 80 years, and I think we ought to put that in there. So we'll consider submitting that to the,
I think what he's going back to is when we met with them Thursday before last, they stipulated that, in their contract with Chara, Chara was required to set aside a trust fund, and I do not know how much that is for, but they were required by contract to set aside a trust fund, to cover any problems that would happen at the site. And it was financed through Bank of America, and then, Duke Energy was, and the term they used was the backstop for that financing. And then after 30 years, the way the contract read, the state would go in and inspect the site. If everything is still safe and as They've continued their testing as they said they would for the 30 years. Everything is safe, and then Chara would then and only then be allowed to release that money from the trust fund. It will have to remain in that trust fund for 30 years. And then after that money is released, then what Duke told us was they would be responsible for the site. Like you said, you can't say in perpetuity anymore, so they would be responsible for the site and for the liability for an additional 80 years. So that would be 110 years. But like Ricky said, it's not in the contract.
It is not, and it was raised to them before, and they did have an explanation of why it wouldn't be in there, but I have to go back over that with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that needs to be raised, because that's a whole part of us wanting to have an agreement with them, is so they take responsibility. Mm-hmm.
They do have the time factor with the state, and so we'll have to check the law, but, you know, Chara's already on the hook for the first 30 years through the permit. It's the beyond the 30 years that you have to go back through and review and see if that's covered anywhere in the statute, which it's not. I don't believe it's covered anywhere in the solid waste rules either. So that beyond the 30 years is what we'll have to address with Duke.
I think it was all in good faith,
That's why you wanted it right.
that's why we wanted it right.
Yeah.
I understand.
That's
I
why.
thought I understood him to say that at the end of 30 years, the state required an inspection in order. And
They did, right,
and-
right.
And after that inspection, that Chara would, and the state found nothing, then they released 75% of that money back to Duke Energy to take care of the next 80 years. But that's
But again, I don't know, like John said, you know, if that needs to be put in writing for us past the 30 years, yeah, I think we need to be clear on that moving forward.
I think we ought to have some clarity to it and making sure that we have it documented so that when we go forward, we can know what we have in front of us opposed to just assuming.
Okay. What else? It is a lot to digest. I think, you know, our responsibility lies with, one of the things, at least based on my notes that we've heard from the forums and the people that have come here that we definitely appreciate in speaking to us, is, you know, health and safety is the primary concern of the community. And also to a point, I know we keep saying economic development, and right now that's just not a priority for y'all. I have heard some people say property values. So that's kind of where we're going with the economic development.
And our health and safety. And our animals.
Right, and I
I don't have a well, I've got municipal water, which I can't drink because it tastes like crap, but I've got a pond and springs and a creek, and I live directly adjacent to it.
and we've heard from you, and I do appreciate it, and that's one of the things that we've.
Yeah, y'all don't have it in your backyard, do you? Y'all don't want any more sites.
Okay, thank you.
My well joins
Thank
some
you.
property, how about mine too?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have heard you. and we're trying to do our very best, with everything we've got in front of us. Anybody else like to add anything as far as the agreement's concerned?
So we have a website, right? You put it up on the website. It's up to the board.
Well, I think, I mean, we can, sure, but I think the next step in my mind would be for you to get back in touch with them if they would agree to the additions.
Correct.
If they don't agree to the additions, I don't think we have much further to go.
Madam Chair, I think, at this point, the board just needs to decide how they're gonna go forward at this point. So, we can get with Duke tomorrow. I'm sure they'll respond to us quickly. But, the clock is running on their permit applications. The 404 wetlands permit's running. The draft permit, for the solid waste permit was issued today. So, the clock is running. And, if we don't have an agreement, your staff needs to start getting ready to do other things. So, we need to keep this process moving of reviewing this and to see if the board's going to agree to the agreement. So I would suggest that we, let the board take the agreement home tonight, smoke it over a little bit. We'll get in touch with Duke in the morning, try to come to an agreement with this, and if, want to recess this meeting again until Wednesday, that give us 48 hours to try to do it this time instead of just the weekend, and, try to bring back what we have, because trying to meet with them tomorrow, bring something back tomorrow night, it's gonna be very difficult for us as staff to get that done. So I would prefer that, my suggestion would be is that we, push it off 48 hours until Wednesday, because, we need to start getting prepared if we don't have it ready.
One other thing I think you might want to consider, Madam Chair.
Yes.
is to- Let's get the additions that we've made for everyone so that we can all know what it is that she's working on. And those things you consider to be a deal breaker, staff needs to know right away. Because we're talking about 48 hours.
Well,
Can you get this out to the environmental review board too? See if they shoot us anything back in the next couple of days?
They can pick up and,
I mean, just give them a heads up on it.
I don't think they're gonna be able to meet 48 hours. They have to give 48 hours notice to me, but,
They can send something to us.
this is,
before we stay with the 48 hours, is Wednesday okay with everybody? Because I know, I have church, so, Thursday.
I won't be able to make it.
Can't make it Thursday.
No
We
problem.
might be looking at 24 hours. Can we do it tomorrow?
I can't do it tomorrow. What? No, well, if, can you do it at any time Wednesday, Kurt? I mean, at 5 or 6? 6? Okay, I should be late. Okay, so we're back to the 48 hours. So now we need to know what has to be included for us to even consider it on Wednesday.
Everything that we discussed, we're gonna approach them on.
I mean, that's the way I feel. If they don't agree to what we've talked about tonight, I don't see us meeting again. No, well, I mean,
I'm just saying, if you added 5 things,
right.
are you suggesting all 5 must be in there, or any one can break the deal? I don't understand what we're trying to do.
For me, all five need to be in there.
I think,
But I
you know,
mean,
from the staff's perspective, as part of the negotiation, is we're talking with Duke. You know, they may have concerns with these, they may not. And so, you know, at some point, the board has to make a decision whether they're willing to move forward with the agreement, with or without it. And that's why we feel that, you know, we have to get it back to you quickly for a decision.
We'll take a 5-minute recess.
sir,
We'll take a 5-minute break.
okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
We'll take a 5 minute, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, we'll come back. Okay, back to the conversation. We need instruction, for council and clarification for her. Can you read back, do you mind, what we have changed tonight?
Yes, paragraph 5, you wanted me to add that there are no other Lee County sites for coal ash. You asked for a copy of the DOT scale reports. You wanted me to add, in paragraph 7, you wanted me to add testing in addition to sampling, and also baseline testing of the wells by Chara. Paragraph 8, you wanted me to add a provision that economic development would be at a minimum for the duration of the project through 2022, with a priority given to the Colon Osgood community. Paragraph 9, we want no release against Chara and Green Meadows. And I'm not sure which paragraph this was, but you wanted that Duke would have financial responsibility and a guarantee for 80 years.
That wasn't on there, but we just injected that in there.
Right,
That wasn't
right,
part of
right,
this.
right, yeah, she's just saying that was just an addition, yeah. Okay, I guess just, sort of poll the board. Robert, are there any issues that are, as you said, deal breakers for you that we need to make sure are included before?
I just wait to see what they do.
Okay,
That's all I'm interested in.
Wait for their response.
okay.
So,
I think we ought to wait for the response from our council,
Andre.
our staff.
Any deal breakers as far as what she just read out, or any further additions? Okay, Kirk? Okay, so as far as this is concerned,
We'll
just,
take it back to Duke tomorrow.
and then email us their responses as soon as she gets them.
Madam Chairman, I'll excuse you a minute. I got Lane joined it.
Right,
I'm still on my back porch and throw a rock. My little puppy was loose in my yard. I got a llama when used to my yard. I got snakes and cages. Every bit of that water's gonna drain down on my leg, draining down on the mouth. Is
okay.
that gonna stop?
I'll talk to you after the meeting. We didn't have public comments tonight, but if you,
I'm
no,
sorry.
that's okay, cause I know you came in later, but if you don't, if you'll just hang on, and when we adjourn, I'll be glad to talk to you. No problem. Okay,
As soon as I hear, I will let the board know.
okay. So, before we recess, do you have other things you need to discuss related
No, ma'am.
to the coal ash?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? So, can everybody recess until Wednesday at 6? Okay,
You need a motion.
thank
I
you.
move that we recess until Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, we're recessed until Wednesday at 6 o'clock here at the Government Center. Thank you.